Well, I got at least a dozen messages yesterday from different people asking me this same question. Tom, are we going to get Odell Beckham Jr.? Tom, I hear OBJ wants out of Cleveland. Should we be the White Knight and rescue him from his tormentor, who happens to be the Cleveland Browns? Tom, how's your day going? Just kidding, no one asked that. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom. Let's talk about hypothetical trades forever, Grossi. And today we'll be looking at this hypothetical trade. Odell Beckham Jr. potentially coming to the Green Bay Packers. But before we get to that, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to a brand new Patreon, and that is Mr. Jake Vukalek. Thank you, my good sir, for joining the Aaron Rodgers tier. If you are interested in supporting me on the Patreon and getting some cool rewards, check out patreon.com/Tom Grossi Comedy. Now, let's break down this OBJ talk, because I thought we were past this. We made it past the trade deadline. We talked about basically every single type of player that we could trade for. Emmanuel Sanders, AJ Green. We talked about others that I can't remember right now. And I thought it was done, right? It's because we can't do any more trades this year. We were at that time, we were rocking and rolling. We didn't have Davante Adams, but we were still winning games and it was successful and everybody was happy and joyous. And now we're back here in this abyss where I just love to be. And if you have watched this channel for any amount of time, even in the past 6 seconds, you've probably realized, wow, this man is mentally unstable, one. And two, that I'm usually not the guy that's very gung-ho about going out and signing these big franchise wide receivers, because let's be completely honest, wide receivers, right? They're a dime a dozen. You can go and get a good one in the draft if we actually spend some capital in the draft. But then again, a couple years ago, we spent a whole lot of capital, right, in getting MVS, Equinemius St. Brown. We got Jamal Moore, which that didn't work out too well. And so I'm talking like real draft capital, like maybe a first-round pick or a second-round pick. That's usually where I like to go. But let's talk about OBJ and why these reports are coming out. So it's been speculated that OBJ wants out of Cleveland. And I mean, I think that's just any rational person would want off of that team, considering their season thus far. But apparently OBJ, this is reportedly speculation, is going around and telling opposing teams, players, and coaches, come get me. Basically saying, get me out of Cleveland, which I just imagine, like, like the handshakes, like, after the game. It's just like, coach, good game, good game. Please, for the love of God, they're holding me hostage here. I don't want to be here anymore. Please, come and save me. Come and save me, please. They hurt me. But good game, coach, good game. And they're just like going, like, OBJ is just going up to random like ball boys or water boys and gals, and it's just like, hey man, I loved how you squirted that water. That was great. Do you think you could save me? Do you think that you could smuggle me in a cooler of Gatorade? Do you think you could do it? No. Don't look at anyone else. You're looking at me right now. Maintain eye contact. Do you think you could smuggle me out in a container of yellow Gatorade? Which is just, for me, that's just absolutely phenomenal. Now, when asked about this, OBJ was very mysterious, saying no one knows what the future holds, like tomorrow, right? And then when flat out asked, do you still want to be in Cleveland, he goes, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen. Well, that was very helpful. Thank you, OBJ. Appreciate that. Thanks. It doesn't answer any questions whatsoever. Now, Jarvis Landry, who has been a close friend of Odell Beckham Jr., obviously his teammate over there in Cleveland, has come out and said he doesn't want to leave and he's not trying to leave. And at points, I think he said he would also kick his ass, so. And Baker Mayfield has come out and said that he trusts him completely. Who knows about the speculation, but he trusts him. But Baker Mayfield also came out and said that the health trainers over in Cleveland mishandled Odell Beckham Jr.'s injury that he has sustained this year, which obviously put him in hot water, and he had to apologize to the training staff there. But it seems that for all intents and purposes, and again, we are outsiders looking in, that it seems like OBJ is not necessarily happy in Cleveland. And you could understand why, right? So, for example, he has now gone 7 consecutive games without topping 100 receiving yards, which is the first time in his career. You also take a look at his stats this season. And again, he's also had injuries that have been lingering. He has 59 receptions, 844 yards, only 2 touchdowns, and he's only amassed 2 100-yard games this season. Now, when taking a look at this, you take a look at also like his average, which is 14.3 yards per catch. That's actually tied for second best. So, I mean, that's still pretty good. He's still getting a good amount of yards per catch. But in playing since 2014, every single season he's played, he's had over 1,000 yards, except when he was injured in 2017 and this year so far. But considering that he only has 166 yards to go, I'm assuming he's gonna get it in the next 3 games, but, you know, he's gonna barely get it. But obviously those TD numbers are super, super down. So the question then becomes, okay, is it even possible to get Odell Beckham Jr.? Because obviously the Giants signed him for a big 5-year contract, in which made him ridiculously wealthy, made him the highest paid wide receiver for a time, and until like Julio Jones came around and was like, nay, and I'm pretty sure like Michael Thomas or something like that is beating him too. But right now, if the deal just like went out the entire way, he's currently signed until 2024. When he gets out, he'll be 31 years old. This year, he made $16.75 million. Also, he's going to cost about $14 million per year until 2024, and his cap hit is going to be about $15 million per year. Now, there's a little caveat to that, because within his contract, there is an out in 2020. So if the Browns were just like, nah, we're going to get rid of you, it would cost them $2.75 million in cap, but that'd be just dead money. But there is potential for an out there. However, obviously, the Cleveland Browns aren't just going to be like, bye, like they're just going to cut him, because that would be really, really stupid. You know, like the Giants trading him away after they just signed him for a lucrative contract. And who would do that? And so it seems that if the rumors are true, if the speculation is true that Odell Beckham Jr. wants out of Cleveland, it would make sense that the Browns are going to try and trade him. So, taking a look at where the Green Bay Packers come along. Let's take a look at the cap numbers first, then we'll get into talking about actual need for wide receivers. So, the estimated cap, according to overthecap.com, is going to be $27.6 million next year for the Green Bay Packers. Now, this is if we keep everyone. This is if we keep Jimmy Graham, who obviously is a big chunk of that. You know, Blake Martinez might go other places. We haven't re-signed guys like Kenny Clark, right? So this number could obviously fluctuate between now and then. So if we were to pick up, let's just say, Odell Beckham Jr., we keep him to the deal that he's currently signed, and he's going to cost about $15 million per year. So that's going to leave us about $12 million in cap. Now, again, the cap is going to be increasing and all that great stuff, which, I can't calculate right at this moment. But with $12 million in cap, you still have to sign you have to sign any free agents that you want to potentially get. You have to go and sign your draft picks. And on top of that, we still need extensions for guys. Maybe it's Blake Martinez. I know that's very controversial, but like guys like Kenny Clark definitely need to be re-signed. And so that will make things a little bit more difficult, but it's doable. It's definitely doable. Who knows? Maybe he gets something restructured because he'd actually be playing with a good quarterback. So that would be something. And so then we start looking into the need. If the Green Bay Packers need a wide receiver. And I know there are many people out there who are like, yes, we need a wide receiver and we need one badly. And I've been like, all right, well, let's just keep rocking and rolling with what we have because we want our guys to develop and grow. And I'm still on board with that. But based off what we've seen off our wide receivers this year, I will admit that there are problems. So, for example, Davante Adams obviously only played 9 games this year so far because he had an injury. But in that time, 56 receptions, 685 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So those numbers are down. Then you start looking at everybody else. So, for example, Kumaro played 11 games, only started 4, only 10 receptions, 163 yards, and 1 touchdown. Al Lazard, 13 games, only started 1 of them, 24 receptions, 349 yards, and 2 touchdowns. MVS, 13 games, only started 8, 23 receptions, 427 yards, 2 touchdowns. Allison, 13 games, started 6, 29 receptions, 251 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And so if you add all these guys up except Davante, you're getting just over 1,000 yards, which is not impressive in any way, shape, or form, and you're getting a total of 7 touchdowns. So we've only had 10 touchdowns, including Davante Adams, from our entire wide receiver core all season. Now, that's not necessarily indicative that we need a wide receiver, because you look at guys like Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams, right? And that we have this increased running game when Matt LaFleur decides to like Aaron Jones. And so I looked at that too. So Aaron Jones, obviously having a number of touchdowns on the ground, but for receiving touchdowns, he has 45 receptions, which is second in the team to Davante Adams, has 425 yards, which is just under MVS by 2 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which is the most is tied with Davante Adams for the most for a receiver for receiving touchdowns. Then you have Jamal Williams, who has 36 receptions, 227 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. And so right now, our leading receiver when it comes to touchdowns is Jamal Williams. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, it shows that we can spread the ball around, what have you. But I think Packer fans are pretty much on the same page that an elite wide receiver would certainly help. It just has to come down to the right price. And Odell Beckham Jr. is most likely going to cost a pretty penny. But I think that there is potential there. So while I am not going to completely poo-poo it and say, no, we definitely don't need Odell Beckham Jr., if we don't go and get Odell Beckham Jr., the Packers, I think, in the draft have to address wide receiver. And I love Davante Adams, and he is my number one guy. He's my ride or die. Hopefully a guy like Allen Lazard or MVS can step up, right? But MVS has been getting less snaps as Lazard has been looking more like the number 2 guy. And Jimmy Graham, he has 32 receptions for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns, but, we're paying him also like a crap ton of money to do that. And I think that an elite wide receiver would not solve all our problems, but I think it would definitely help this offense potentially find a rhythm. Because I don't know, like, for example, like when we had, Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, we had that 1-2 punch, right? Or we had, Greg Jennings and Donald Driver, we had that 1-2 punch. We've constantly had 2 really good receivers, right? And with Davante, we definitely have a great receiver. It's just we need to find him a number 2. So my question to you is, the fact that we're paying Davante Adams a whole bunch of money, are we going to then turn around and pay a whole bunch of money to a good number 2 who would essentially elevate to number 1 status? We would basically be paying for 2 number 1 receivers. And so that's when things get a little dicey, because then you're starting to spend a whole bunch of money on just 2 positions when we're already spending a crap ton of money, obviously, on the quarterback. And so you take a look at like what's ahead, right? So eventually we're going to have to re-sign Aaron Jones. We're going to have to potentially look at Jamal Williams. And then we might have to potentially cut our losses with some of these guys. And remember, we still have EQ, right? We still have Equanimeous St. Brown, who obviously is not playing this year due to injury, but we also don't know what we have in him. And so while these decisions can't be made this season because the trade deadline is over, I think the Packers do eventually need to address wide receiver, whether that's going to be spending significant draft capital, either the number 1 or number 2 pick in a receiver, or maybe going out and just getting another number 2 guy and wait for those guys to develop. Because if you look at this right now, I gotta be honest, Geronimo Allison has not really impressed this year. He has failed to live up to that potential. I thought he was gonna be doing much better this year. So, Geronimo Allison potentially goes away. Kumaro, while I love Whitewater Jesus, more than anybody, I love Whitewater Jesus, I don't know if he's going to stick around on the team, but then again, if he's super cheap. But then you have guys like MVS and Lazard. Lazard, you obviously hang on to. And then MVS, I guess you hold on to him for another couple years, 1 or 2 more seasons to see if he can develop. I think it's just a matter of, I understand that we have this window, right, of Aaron Rodgers playing as our QB, and we're trying to make the most of it. But I think in this case, you go out and potentially get a good number 2. Hell, I mean, AJ Green is a free agent next year, so, there's that. But there are always wide receivers that are available. Hell, Ryan Grant we have on our team. We just haven't seen him do anything. But I mean like an established veteran wide receiver to be the number 2 guy. Not going to blow anyone away, but at least the consistency is going to be there. That's why when we were coming out with all these videos, I said Emmanuel Sanders might not be the worst idea. So I think they definitely need to address it. I don't think you need to go out and get another number 1 guy because we already have another number 1 guy. But I think you need a strong number 2. Whether you can develop Allen Lazard or MVS to be that person, great. Or you're going to go out into the draft and develop a really great wide receiver out of college that you spend some draft capital on, and so then he can rise to be the next number 2 and eventually maybe number 1. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think the Packers should go after OBJ? Let me know what you're thinking. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media. See down below. Check out Packcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course the YouTube. And a big shout out and thank you to all the Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. But thank you so much for watching. We'll be streaming at 1 o'clock, a little bit earlier, about 12:45 Eastern, to prepare for the Packers versus Bears 200th meeting. You know it's going to be sexy in Lambeau this weekend. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.